And welcome to my study and to my computer screen for a little conversation about pronoun antecedent agreement in number. Pronoun antecedent disagreement is the mistake we make, and we want to correct that and have the correct pronoun antecedent agreement in number in our writing. This is a problem that I encounter all the time. More commonly, it is done incorrectly than examples when I find in student writing that it's done correctly. In conversation, almost always we hear people making the mistake of not having their antecedent agree with their pronoun in many instances, and it sounds all right in conversation, but in formal writing we really want to avoid that. And it's a problem that seems a little bit sticky sometimes to people, but it's really very simple to fix. And when I see it in writing, it stops me, distracts me. I stop thinking about what's being written, the content, and I start thinking about why didn't someone take the time to fix the agreement problem between the pronoun and the antecedent. So don't do it in writing, learn how to fix it, and that's what we're going to do today. So the first line of our little document, which I took from Diana Hacker's Rules for Writing, because it explains the way of fixing this in a very simple, straightforward fashion that you shouldn't have any trouble remembering, is when a plural pronoun refers mistakenly to a singular indefinite pronoun, you can usually choose one of three options for revisions, and we'll look at those and then we're going to apply them in the sentences below, and it'll be very easy for you in the future to make sure that when you run into this problem you fix it. So first of all, what is an indefinite pronoun? Well, an indefinite pronoun is a word like everybody or someone or nobody or everything or something like that. That is a pronoun that you really can't put a specific identity to. And when you use it, very often we use it in examples, as we'll see below, and then use a pronoun to refer back to it. And when you do that, they have to agree in number. But we don't always do that. We don't often do that. So let's look at the rules first, and then we'll apply them, and I think it'll become clear what we're talking about. Replace the plural pronoun with he or she, or his or her, depending on the case we're talking about. Replace the plural pronoun with he or she, and then that will make it singular. We'll see how that plays out below. Or we could make the antecedent plural to make it agree with the plural pronoun that we're using. Or we can just rewrite the sentence so we don't have the problem in the first place. Let's see how this plays out in the examples below. So we have the sentence 3 times repeated. When someone travels outside the United States for the first time, they need to apply for a passport. It's clear what the problem is here. Someone is singular, that's our indefinite pronoun, and they, the pronoun that we're using to refer back to someone, is plural. And it doesn't agree and it isn't right. So we need to fix it. So using the first example, first rule up there of how to fix this, we can just take they. Let's try it again here. Let me get the whole thing highlighted. And type in he or she. So now, and we need to fix our verb as well, because the verb is now singular. So he or she needs is our correction. So now it reads fine. When someone travels outside the United States for the first time, he or she needs to apply for a passport. Now that works perfectly fine, but it's a little awkward sometimes to say he or she. It kind of slows down the reader and it kind of clutters up the sentence a little bit with more words than you really want to put in there. And that's why we went to the he or she in the first place. Back in the olden days, so to speak, people just used to use the masculine pronoun, he. So when someone travels outside the United States for the first time, he needs to apply for a passport. Well, that leaves out 50% of the population, and it's known as sexist writing, to just kind of ignore the other gender there. So we try to get around that, and when we do it with he or she, it can sound awkward, so, but we can get away with it, and it will work in some instances just fine. But a better way, in my opinion, is to use rule number 2. When someone travels outside the United States for the first time, they need to apply for a passport. Someone is singular, as we know from our above example. So instead of worrying about the plural pronoun, let's look at the indefinite pronoun here. and change that. Highlight someone here. And to make that plural, we can say when people, and again our verb has to change here to make it agree. When people travel outside the United States for the first time, they need to apply for a passport. That sounds fine. It flows just perfectly. It's just as good as the first example, only it's right. It's better. So that is my go-to choice for trying to fix these problems, is try to make the indefinite pronoun singular. And you can do that in a number of ways. This is just one. So that solves the problem. I like that way very much. But sometimes it's just not going to work, or for some reason you don't like that particular option, and we don't want to go to the he or she option because it's too awkward and lengthy. So we can just rewrite our sentence in a different way so we avoid the problem. We don't have the indefinite pronoun with the referent back. So how do we do that? Okay, here's what we're going to do here. Instead of saying when someone, we'll say people who gotta fix this, who travel outside the United States for the first time, and we'll just take out this pronoun because we don't need it anymore. And it says people who travel outside the United States for the first time need to apply for a passport. So we've restructured our sentence. We've rethought how we're going to express this particular thought, and I think that works just fine. In fact, it works perhaps better than the other two options above, both of them. So you have the choice. Use one of those three ways, and you can easily avoid this problem, which I see all the time and which stops me and stops other readers and slows them down and distracts them from what you're trying to say. So do not leave a disagreement in pronoun and antecedent in number in place in your writing. I will note it every time, and others will be distracted by it.